What's up, guys? Ivan Carranza here, and welcome to Bass Tone Tuesday. Today, we're gonna talk about bad soundcheck experiences, but most importantly, what we can learn from that. So this past weekend, I played with Dr. Krapil at 2 shows, one in the south of Germany in Nuremberg, and then the other one was completely the opposite direction. It was near the Polish and Czech border, so it was like the city right next to Poland and the Czech Republic. And we had to drive, I don't know, like 7 hours, maybe 6 hours from Nuremberg up there to Zittau, it was called. And we arrived on time. We arrived at 4 p.m., I think. And then we had a coffee to get some energy, and then we started setting up our gear on stage. And it was a fairly large stage. It was not huge, but we have some space there to move around and you name it. So we started setting up our things. Maybe it took us 15 minutes, 20 at the most. We had everything ready, keyboards, guitar amps, drums, SPD sampler, my bass, everything was already there. So the only thing that we had to wait for was for the engineers to connect everything, XLR cables from bass to the stage box, microphones, drum channels, and all that. So we noticed that they were a bit slow on that department. So they took their time, and we had to wait for that to happen, And then when we wanted to start checking some things, already an hour had gone by. And then when we started checking all the signals, right, so doing a line check, some of the channels were not really working. There was no signal going into the front of house. So it was like, is it our device? So we started checking. We checked with headphones and some things that allowed us to do this, and there was signal coming. So we checked cables. And what turned out to be the biggest issue was that for some reason, the front of house company had only 3-meter long XLR cables. So going from the stage box to the far right of the stage to the far left of the stage for the keyboard, for example, required them to hook up a bunch of XLR cables to connect one device to the other, which meant that if one of those cables was not working, try to figure out which one of them is the faulty one. So you had to unplug everything, replug everything, check again. That took a massive amount of time. Like 2 hours passed while we were checking that. So it was a complete waste of time. But once we had all the signals ready, and then we wanted to, do a real sound check, so play something so that we can check our monitoring and then check the sound out front, that also took a massive amount of time because the guy behind the console was completely overwhelmed. It took them a lot of time, changing things. The keyboard didn't have monitoring. Our singer didn't have monitoring. I didn't have monitoring. My wedge was pretty much off. It was just spitting out white noise. I didn't hear a single thing. So what that turned out to happen was that we waited 3.5 hours and only managed to play half a song for our sound check so that we can check, okay, is there sound going outside? Okay, that's enough. So we had to manage to play a festival show like that, which was fairly frustrating because taking 3.5 hours for something that can take an hour at most, and your show is 1.5 hours long, that is rather frustrating. It's not comfortable to play in that situations. We were not happy. The festival people were not happy because there was a band playing before us and they didn't get to soundcheck because we were doing soundcheck, quote unquote. So it was a complete mess, right? So we went to our hotel because we had 2 hours to kill before stage time. And then when we came back, we managed to play the show. The people out in front really enjoyed it. So it went better than expected, considering the situations. But that left us with a really, sour feeling, because it's not fun to play like that. It's not fun to just waste time like that. And nobody wins from that situation. So what we decided to do is that for our upcoming shows is that we're going to build an in-ear rack monitor so that we can all plug directly there. We then control our own monitoring, and then we send a copy of pre-affected signals to front of house. So we go into a splitter, one signal goes to front of house, one goes into a digital mixer in the rack, and then we can mix our own monitoring, because that way we always are going to have the same sound no matter where we play, and we don't have to rely on somebody else dialing all that in. All the front of house people have to do is plug in their XLR cables into the stage box to our splitter, and that's it. Then they only have to focus on setting the sound for the front, not for us. So that's gonna save us a massive amount of time. And I'm gonna be doing a video solely on that setup, on the rack, what we're using, how we're doing it. But we are still in the process of building that up, and we're gonna be using that from now on once everything is set up. So, what we learned from that experience is that you should make it as easy as possible for everyone involved. Maybe that is, of course, self-explanatory, but if you're playing several shows, you deal with a lot of variables. So if you can control at least some of them, you're making sure that things go a bit smoother. Now, of course, we cannot control the cables that the front of house company brings. We cannot control their skill level at the mixing desk because they are hired by the festival promoter. So at least we can control our own mixes, and thus making sure that we can at least perform. And related to that, so what you can take from this experience is that, one, you should always have backup things, backup cables, a backup solution in case your amp dies, maybe a backup DI box, something that can help you play and get through the gig. For example, that's why I'm taking my Quad Cortex and my Noble to the shows. Not because I need the Noble. Yes, it does make the sound a bit richer, get that tubey vibe, but in case my Quad Cortex dies for some reason, I can plug in directly into the Noble and take a signal from there. Or I can take the DI out of my amp and go to front of house. So I have three things that allow me to save the show in case something happens. I also have backup instrument cables, and I also have backup patch cables. I have backup strings. So you should be prepared for things like that, because, for example, a couple of shows ago, our Moog or Moog, depending on how you want to call it, died. It just wasn't working. So we had to send that to repair, but we had to play a show without it. And having a backup, of course, it's hard to have a backup Moog because they're fairly expensive, but knowing how to react to such situations is very important. And also related to the guy not really knowing how to control his mixing desk, you should really know your gear. You should be able to set up things quickly, find problems quickly as well, and also solve them quickly, because you never know what can happen. If they tell you, hey, you need to change this or that, or maybe some parameter changes, or the sound is not working for a night, you don't want to be the guy that requires 30 minutes to do a simple change of sound. You gotta be able to react quickly and efficiently. So know how your stuff works, and most importantly, keep your setup simple. You don't want to have to, like I said, find the missing or the faulty cable amongst a jungle of cable. You want to be able to spot issues fast and also minimize the chance of failure. You don't want to be playing and, you know, having to spend a mid-show, I don't know how many minutes, trying to solve an issue. So you should be able to react quickly. You should be able to spot mistakes quickly and fix them as fast as possible. So I hope this helps as a learning experience for you guys. I hope that this video helps you. Maybe you might reconsider your setup. Of course, it depends on what you do. I'm playing gigs, I'm playing on a tour. I need to make things as efficient as I can. If you're just playing at home and have a bunch of cables and a bunch of pedals, do your thing. Nobody's gonna complain. But if the show is delayed because you really need to have, I don't know, 5 distortion pedals all hooked up with cheap patch cables, you know, that's gonna make everyone's lives a bit harder, and you don't want to be that person. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what has been your worst soundcheck experience, and also don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay up to date with the content that's coming to the channel. As always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.